Okay. So thank you to joining me on this fine Wednesday morning, and thank you to the Global Partnership for this and making this community of practice come alive with these presentations and discussions. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to talk more about work in the world of numeracy. And today, sharing with you Save the Children's newest called Numeracy Boost, and our recent launch of the pilot in Malawi last month. So just like Deepa showed you a poll, I'm going to ask her to put up a quick poll right now. The first poll, Deepa, just to get a sense of how many of you know who Save the Children is and what we do. What is looking like I don't have...
So it's, it looks, a lot of people do know about Save the Children.
Okay.
So it's fluctuating a little bit. Hold on 1 second. And then it closes. 75% of people know.
So Save the Children is the leading organization for children, and we work both domestically here in the United States and 125 countries. We work in different sectors: child protection, health and nutrition, HIV, and livelihoods. If you want to know more about who we are, what we do, our programs, you can go and website at savethechildren.org, and I'll put the website up at the end of the presentation. So just an overview for what I'm about today. So the focus of this presentation on numeracy, innovation that Save the Children has developed that we call Numeracy Boost. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're focusing on numeracy, and then take you through of what Numeracy Boost is and kind of go into the toolkit. There's 3 components to it, as you can see there. And talk a little bit about what we have planned next going forward for numeracy and Numeracy Boost. And we'll end with a short test. No, I'm just kidding. But if you would like to take a test, you can email me and send you some math tests to take. Okay, so numeracy. I think those of you who put this presentation last month, she also went over some of the reasons behind how a lot more research has been done on math skills and the of how math skills and math knowledge play in children's later school success. So that's one of the areas, of course, why we want to also focus on numeracy as well as the work that we do in literacy. And our work in numeracy actually came to our work with literacy through a program called Literacy Boost. And how when we piloted Literacy Boost in a couple of countries and we saw that children were making gains in both literacy and numeracy. And obviously a strong foundation in math is very necessary to succeed both in school and in the real world, because math is such an applicable component of our lives. So just second poll, Deepa, Literacy Boost. I'm going to talk a little bit about Literacy Boost because it sets the frame for this story. And I wanted to know how many of you in the audience have heard about Save the Children's Literacy Boost program.
I'm just going to let people vote for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Can you just ask if everyone's voted?
Has everyone had a chance to vote?
Okay, I'm going to close the poll. So 62.5% of people have heard of it.
Okay. So I'm going to just, in a nutshell, go over Literacy Boost. We've developed Literacy Boost at Save the Children. It's a 3-part program, and it focuses support on teachers and communities to strengthen children's reading skills and to help them to read with understanding. So Literacy Boost works with students, teachers, and the entire community. And teachers participate in a series of 9 monthly training modules that focus on these 5 key skills listed here: phonemic awareness, letter knowledge, fluency, accuracy, vocabulary, and comprehension. And the unique thing about Literacy Boost is that there's a strong out-of-school component as well that really engages the community in participating in activities like reading festivals, readathons, story time, reading camps, and reading buddy program for children. So all of these three components together make up the Literacy Boost program. And when we first start a Literacy Boost program, the first thing that we do is conduct a student assessment. And when we first launched Literacy Boost in Malawi and in Nepal, in addition to giving students a literacy assessment on these 5 key reading skills, we also gave them a math assessment. And what we found when we started collecting the data is that with just teacher training focused on literacy, children were actually making gains in both literacy and numeracy. And this was something that we saw as a very pleasant surprise, and we wanted to investigate this further. So you can see here the Literacy Boost schools are in red. You have Malawi in grade 2 and 4, Nepal in grade 2, performing better than the comparison schools. And again, average correct scores on the math assessment that we gave them in Malawi, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. Now, obviously, these percentages are not where we want children in these grades to be. We want them to be achieving at much higher scores than this, but this was just through our Literacy Boost intervention. So we wanted to test out a more direct system for implementing and for seeing what it would look like if children, teachers, communities were supported strictly in math knowledge. So we set out to develop our math intervention, and we've been working on developing Numeracy Boost since the beginning of this year. And we started out by talking to our colleagues in the country offices, having focus group discussions with the teachers in the classrooms, getting doing some surveys with teachers about what they think, feel, believe about math, teaching and learning, what their own sort of understanding of how math should be taught is. We looked at the local curriculum in the countries in which we work, the math competencies, any standards that the country or the state or the province that we work in has put out. And so we did a lot of analysis and comparison amongst countries and between countries to get a sense of where people are with their math knowledge and understanding and how they teach it. We also convened an expert workshop at the beginning of this year where we invited folks from places like Teachers College at Columbia University, Bank Street School of Education, teacher training institutes like the Erickson Institute in Chicago and the UCLA Math Project in California. And these are people who are really working at the forefront of both math education in graduate schools and also with teachers in really large urban school districts like in Chicago and LA. And we wanted to talk to these experts to see what they thought about not only math content and what math content teachers should be trained on, but also some bigger questions like, are there a range of math skills that students need to know? And then is it possible to take those skills that students need to know and develop a toolkit that can be applied in a lot of different places? And then some more, I guess, philosophical type questions. Is math an innate skill? And can teachers be taught to teach math? So these last 2 questions, as you can imagine, had a lot of a lively debate, I will say, and there were a lot of answers and a lot of differences of opinion. We also consulted the NCTM, the National Council for the Teachers of Mathematics Standards, as well as the CCCSM, the Common Core State Standards for Mathematics, to see what those 2 bodies were talking about in terms of math for the early grades. And after discussing with our experts, with our colleagues in the field, and doing our own research on NCTM, CCSM, we found that there were some topics that were coming up that were pretty universal, and for the early grades especially. And those are numbers in operation, geometry, and measurement. And so that kind of began to form our toolkit in terms of what content we would be focusing on. And in our discussions with these groups of people and also with our colleagues in the country, we knew we wanted to focus on the early grades because we know that a strong foundation early on goes a very long way in supporting children's math learning as they get up into the upper grades. In addition to just the core competencies or the content, we were also struck by what our colleagues were saying in the field as well as what the experts were saying in terms of having children, giving children opportunities to develop their own math knowledge, to construct math knowledge from their own experiences. And this rings true in excuse me, what the NCTM also calls as process standards. So they say that core math content should be addressed by students in the context of the mathematical processes of problem solving, reasoning, and proof, communication, connections, and representation. And without these, a student's mathematical knowledge is likely to be fragile and limited. So as we were developing our toolkit and thinking about how we wanted to present it to teachers, we knew we really wanted to focus on these process skills because this was an area that our colleagues in the field told us is weak in the classroom. You know, by and large, most of the subjects are very teacher-directed. There's very little time for children to discuss, to talk to one another, to explore materials or manipulatives, all of the things that we had been hearing and talking to colleagues and experts about in terms of being really, really important for children to have time to actually discuss and talk about the why. Why is 15 take away 9 6, and is that a reasonable response? So we knew we wanted to build that element into the toolkit. I think I'm going to take a break here, a pause rather, for questions if there are any. Okay. All right.
If anyone has any questions, they can put it into the chat box.
So the chat box on the bottom, I think it's the bottom right of your screen. You can type a question right into it, and then Deepa will relay it to me.
Oh, there is a question.
Okay.
Were there any constraints to process skills development described in the workshop discussions you held? And this is a question from Scott.
Could Scott just clarify what he means by constraints in terms of?
Okay, there's a question from Louise. What are the parallels with literacy boost?
Thank you. Should I answer that one first while Scott? Okay. So thank you, Louise, for asking that question. And so the parallels with Literacy Boost, first of all, the entire toolkit is structured based on the Literacy Boost structure. So Numeracy Boost will have a three-pronged approach, just like Literacy Boost. It starts with the student assessment component, there's the teacher training component, and then there's also the community action. And just like Literacy Boost, Numeracy Boost is not meant to be an additional curriculum per se for teachers to go through. Like Literacy Boost, it maps onto the local curriculum. There's time in the training sessions, every session, where teachers use their books to plan for the upcoming sessions and UGs that we're talking about in the sessions, enhance their lessons. So to Literacy Boost in that regard. And the community action component is very much on the Literacy Boost model, where there's math camps. I'm going to talk about that a little bit as I go. Math, parenting awareness sessions around math for parents and community, and other community-wide or events around math, excuse me.
Are there any time constraints, or only the lack of process skills and lack of training?
You know, a lot of the process skills involve time to discuss and talk, and in some training in Malawi, that was one of the areas of concern that a lot of the trainers and the participants mentioned. There's such focus on finishing what's in the textbook, and there's also, it's very much you've been taught, and so the culture very much in a lot of the places we work in is to have the teacher write something up on the blackboard, for on back, and then to go on to the next page and not really stop, think about, and discuss. So in terms of just the way that teachers have have known how to teach for a very, very long time. Time constraints, yes, when you think about, a session being 5 minutes long with very large class sizes, a lot of our toolkit and the activities are based using materials and manipulative to really get into the process skills and to deepen their understanding. So time is obviously required to pass out materials, collect the materials, explain how to use the materials.
Uh,
Say somebody deeper, is there something? iPhone. Okay, so you have a mic. Back up.
Okay, I think we're back on. Sorry about that, folks. We were just we lost connectivity for a minute. Can everybody see the screen and hear the audio? Deepa, do you mind just reading that question, the last question again from Teresa?
Yeah, she was,
okay.
That she's also, she's had challenges in the United Kingdom as well.
Yes.
Where, people who just, for example, that they're not just the problems in Malawi, but rather she's seen it in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, that's a valid comment, Teresa. Thank you for that. And we've, in our discussions in the field, as well as with the experts that we were talking to earlier in the year, that is one of the areas that has been the toughest for them as well in their teacher training programs, to get teachers to think differently about teaching math. We're optimistic. We think that we can definitely try to get teachers to use some of the strategies and the approaches that we're trying to endorse with Numeracy Boost, because Literacy Boost was quite different too in that way, where there was a lot of interaction amongst teachers and students in the classroom, and we have had some success with that. So hopefully Numeracy Boost will be the same. So I think I'm going to continue, and then there'll be another pause at the end for questions towards the end. So just now talking about the actual toolkit, we've been working with a consultant who's a teacher who has helped us develop the teacher training toolkit, so putting together the modules. Again, like I said, the toolkit for Numeracy Boost is very much based on the Literacy Boost model of a student assessment with teacher training modules and a community action component. And the focus is on the early grades. And the three main core topics or areas that we're focusing on in the Numeracy Boost toolkit for teachers and in the community action component is numbers and operations. So these are things like counting, one-to-one correspondence, place value, addition and subtraction, some of the very building blocks of mathematics. Geometry, identifying shapes, both two-dimensional, composing shapes, and measurement, using standard and non-standard units of measurement, being able to identify appropriate measurement for different types of objects. And like we have just been talking about, building that math knowledge, that content, through activities and discussion, and focusing on the fact that math is very relevant and useful to our lives. Okay, we launched Numeracy Boost in Malawi last month, and these are just some pictures from the training that we did over there, as well as some of the work that we did with the community. And we're piloting in 15 schools, and we'll be piloting in Bangladesh later this year and early in 2030. So Bangladesh and Malawi are our two pilot sites. And so Numeracy Boost, like I said, is a student assessment component for children in grade 2. For those of you, again, who participated in the webinar last month with Wendy, our student assessment is actually built on the work that RTI has done on the EGMA, the early grades math. So a lot of our assessment is taken from the EGMA, particularly the section on numbers and operation. Some of the sections are timed, some of them are untimed. Students are given materials to use if they want to work on during the assessment. And we also have an authentic assessment section where we try to get children to explain how they arrive at a particular answer. The first time we are launching electronic assessments using, again, software developed by RTI, the Tangerine, and the pilot in Malawi was, and we're very excited to be using electronic devices because it cuts down on so much human error, time in terms of data entry, and the data is automatically entered and sent to a cloud somewhere, I'm told. The section on the left side of the screen is a segment assessment. This one is the measurement and time section, and so it's very much tailored to children at grade 2 and what they should in their classrooms, and it's also very much adaptable. So when the assessment happens, we have a technical advisor who goes in and works with the country office to adapt the assessment for the particular context. And so that's just a sample question. The teacher training component is made up of 5 modules, and like I said before, the focus is on number and operations, geometry, and measurement. And it's very much an approach or where teachers learn content through doing games and activities. So you can see in the pictures there's teachers using bottle tops, small geometric patterns, and we're very conscious in using materials that were locally available, very cost effective, either low or no cost, because we wanted to show teachers that math materials don't have to be pricey, they don't have to be foreign, they can come from the environment. And we use the same materials to do a variety of different games and activities across the 3 topics, from geometry and measurement to numbers and operations, again showing teachers that can use the same materials to do a lot of different things. The little clip on the right is just a sample session plan for one of our training modules for teachers. So they're 4 hours, about 4 to 5 hours long, and they're implemented monthly. And one of the things that we have tried very hard to do with Literacy Boost, and we're also doing with Numeracy Boost, is to engage Ministry of Education in all of our efforts to conduct teacher training. So during the we have officials from the Ministry of teacher trainers, master math specialists, observers, and because we want them to be of this process so that they can take after we're done. The community action component is 3. There's 3 pieces. There's math camps for some of these images on the bottom that you see, tens and ones in the market, a plate for everyone. Those are books that we had developed. We worked with a consultant, a math educator, who developed some books for us with a math content. So we have books on placement, addition and subtraction, measurement, geometry that we use in the math camps, and then there's an activity that goes along with them. We also have sessions for parents where we show them that they can do very simple activities at home to reinforce those basic math skills, and we've developed something that we call the math calendar, and very simple activities. So this one is called Clap, Jump, Count. Parents ask their children if they can clap exactly 7 times, and this helps children link the number 7 with the actual number 7. And see the one-to-one correspondence. And so these are very simple activities that even parents who have not been to school or don't have formal math training or knowledge can do at home very simply and easily with their So, close up. We found in the process of Numeracy Boost, talking to people in the field, people within our own offices, people from the world of, children aren't blank slates. Every child, even before they've had any formal school experience, has math knowledge and understanding. They bring that with them. They learn from a very young age how much more a sibling is getting of a certain item than them. So they have this innate ability to count, to make connections, to classify, an understanding of math concepts. But that learning needs to be developed further by teachers who are well trained. And like Teresa mentioned, that's a real struggle, challenge. This is why we're doing this intervention or this project, because we hope that we can help teachers, help children gain math knowledge and solidify that math knowledge that they come to school. Getting children to use manipulatives, to discuss, to think of math in a different way, and not to be when they sit bored or think that there's only one way to solve them. It's very, very important intervention to get children to be happy about learning math and to see the real life connections at ethics. So what we're going to be focusing on for this year and into next year is testing our implementation model to see whether Numeracy Boost fits in the 5 teacher training sessions, whether it fits in with all of the other activities that in schools and programs like Boost are doing. And we've already had requests from colleagues in the field themselves that there is a need to develop modules on some of the more advanced topics like addition, double-digit addition and double-digit subtraction for the upper grade, multiplication and division, fractions, some of those types of topics that children and teachers both really struggle with in some of the in which we work, and also trying to develop more community action materials, particularly math books, and trying to crowdsource these like we're doing with our Literacy Boost program as well. And finally, most importantly, working and engaging with education, because we really, really need their support in order to take the project forward, to have it endorsed by schools, to have community be behind it. And so these are some of the areas that we're focusing on for the remainder of this year. And that's it. So I think we're going to open it up to questions. I'm participating, and if you email me directly, my email is there. I know we're going to have some follow-up questions on the Community of Practice Numeracy for Development website as well. And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to take them now.
We have lots of questions.
Okay. Great.
So let me start with actually a couple of questions from Wendy from RTI. So she wanted to know if she thought that you were using a wanted to know if you'd be able to share because it looks using assessments that go testing numbers in.
Yeah.
And she was also wondering if you'd be able to share teacher training, the content in the out of school or the math at home material.
Yep.
And she was also wondering if the programming materials for students, like workbooks beyond the manipulation.
So I'll take the last question first. So every school and every community that's participating in the in the pilot kit, and is made up of those manipulators that you saw, like number cubes, number cards, the bottle top, all of those kinds of things that teachers use. There are materials as such. There's no workbook, or the teachers get a teacher's guide that they use primarily during the training sessions that they have, and they have all the games and activities that are played in their training. Teachers get that. The community is a set of math books, those books that have been developed for us by the consultant, and they also get the math calendar. We'd be in materials both for teacher training and the assessment, and I think that we can arrange something, in later on to share some of those materials with interested. Yeah.
Okay, and Mrs. Maguire from Nairobi, who's connecting from Nairobi, and has a couple of questions.
Okay.
If there are certain skills that should be emphasized in grades that would help influence math fluency in the later grades, and also what can be used to motivate teachers to use the effective strategies when nobody's watching them in the classroom?
That's a great question, Moses. Moses is asking some. I think he asked that other really good question. We had with Literacy Boost some sort of main schemes for teachers who we found have really been using the Literacy Boost successfully. In fact, in Malawi, when we were there for the teaching, we had a teacher who was being recognized at that province level by the administration through there was a ceremony, a certificate ceremony, and he was given a certificate, and officials from the Ministry of Education came to talk about him and to say what a role model he is and should be. And so we found that, that does go some distance in other teachers and wanting to learn. I also personally that when we understand well, when they've been proper training, when they know how to use material, they want to try these things, and if they feel like they're going to be successful. And so the aspect of the Literacy Boost and Numeracy Boost approach is that along with the monthly trainings, our staff as well as Ministry of Education staff go into the classrooms on a monthly basis to really support and help teachers implement these activities, the new strategies. Because of course in the beginning, it's hard, it's difficult, it's new, you don't want to fail, you don't want to look bad in front of your colleagues, you don't want children to not know what's going on. So that support in the beginning also we found through our Literacy Boost program helps teachers continue to use the strategies later on. So a lot of consistent support, especially in the beginning, is really important to help teachers carry on in implementing this. As for some of the skills in the early years, research that has come up that we've read just shows that a lot of number talk, even if it's basic stuff like I'm going to give you 3 bananas today, and here's 1 banana, and just talking about numbers and math in the home in a very casual way, just having children hear that really helps set them up, gives them that foundation so that when they go into the classroom they're already aware of these concepts. So even little things like, can you hold this bucket, see how it's heavier than this bucket, or come and help me and look at that tree, is that tree taller than the tree next to it? So just casual talk, math talk like that has shown, research has shown that really helps children later on as they get into formal schooling.
Okay, so we're running out of time.
So I'm going to summarize a few more questions, and then we're going to continue this discussion on the community practice site.
Okay.
We have a question from Luis. He wants to know how many days are spent before the training out of the classroom, and then how much time is spent inside the classroom coaching the teachers.
Okay. So how much time is spent in the classroom coaching teachers, and how much time is spent by the trainers before the training? Is that right?
Yeah, before the training and then inside the classroom.
Okay, so the modules are all one-day sessions. I think, Louise, that's your question. So teachers come for 1 session every month, and there's 5 Numeracy Boost sessions, so there's 5 sessions over the course of the year. And they all, I forgot to mention this earlier, but each session is meant to be implemented before the teacher teaches that topic in her classroom. So for example, when she's teaching numbers and operations, that unit, the training for that would come before she actually begins teaching those topics, so that she has this, suitcase of strategies and ideas with her before she goes and teaches those topics. So the teacher comes and attends that training, and then she goes into her classroom. And in most scenarios or most cases, and I'm using Literacy Boost as the guide here, our field staff or Ministry of Education staff, or a combination of both, will go into a teacher's classroom at least twice in that month before they come back to attend a second session. Again, it depends on how many schools we're working with and how many staff and MOE officials we have, but each teacher gets visited at least 1 time and sometimes twice, and they spend the duration of the math subject time, 45 minutes, with the teacher, and sometimes a little bit longer afterwards.
So we have a lot of questions, so I'm going to let you answer some of them on the community practice site. I'm going to just give you one more question.
Okay.
There was a question from Lindsay. She wanted to know if the teachers are able to use their assessment data to inform their instruction.
Yes, Lindsay, thank you very much. We have every Numeracy Boost Math session has an assessment component where teachers are asked to think about how they can assess children on that particular topic, what way they will use to assess them. And in the Malawi context, the teachers already have a really good assessment grid, I guess you can say, at the end of every lesson, and during our sessions we help teachers develop that grid further, give them ideas on how they can do the assessment, in a really busy classroom with a lot of children. So yes, they do, and we share the results from the assessment. I think that was your actual question. We share the results of the assessment with the teachers and with the community as well. And during the sessions, when we have those sessions, we talk about the areas in which children are weaker or stronger as a whole. Now, not for individual classrooms or individual schools, but for Malawi, for example, if we find that children are doing really well on one-to-one correspondence, then we know that in the classroom, that in our session, we're going to be mentioning that to teachers. And in the areas that they're not doing as strongly on, for example, addition, we're going to be focusing a lot more of our time talking to teachers about that particular area and how they can then go into the classroom and support addition, or whatever the area is.
So I'm going to...
And also share my screen.
So I want to thank Serene very much.
So I want to thank Serene very much for this wonderful presentation, and I also want to thank all the participants. Very lively discussion and all the questions that you asked. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end the webinar today.